Welcome to CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast with Business Solutions MVPs George Dubinsky, Joel Lindstrom, and Sean the CRM Hobbit Tabor. This episode is brought to you by our friends at KingswaySoft. KingswaySoft is a leading integration solution provider offering software solutions that make data integration affordable and painlessly easy. Thousands of enterprise clients from over 65 countries and regions rely on KingswaySoft to integrate data with various application systems in order to drive their business efficiency and fully leverage their information assets. KingswaySoft is a leading provider of Microsoft Dynamics integration software, including Dynamics 365, CRM, AX, NAV, GP, SL, as well as many other applications such as Marketo, Dropbox, QuickBooks, and Salesforce. Whether you need one solution or several, KingswaySoft works easily within the SSIS platform to make your integration process as quick and easy as possible. Many of their clients have seen 3 to 10 times greater data integration performance after switching to the SSIS integration toolkit. Good day, Hobbit. How are you?
Hello. I'm great. I'm really great. I'm out of the woods on many a massive issue for mobile, so I'm fine.
You feeling happy right now?
I am indeed.
That's what everybody wants to know. Is the Hobbit happy?
At this moment in time, yes. I was very angry this time yesterday. Very angry.
And what were you angry about?
I'm working on a 365 implementation, and out of the blue, mobile, after we configured the entire sitemap using the wonderful app designer, it just crashed. Got these weird errors.
Now, when you say crashed, could you get into it, or it just blew up and fire and flames coming out of the windows?
It could have been flames. It could have been smoke. It did the whole downloading customizations deal. So you're waiting, and it looks like everything's going to load, and then even the error message was weird. Like there wasn't even an OK button. It looked bad. So we looked hiding hair of everything that we did in the last 24 hours to try to figure out what it was that we did. Was it because the environment was slow? Were we publishing too much? Was there conflicts when we published? Was there, did someone tamper with the sitemap incorrectly? Did we, was there some offending code that we didn't realize was happening?
Was it Russian hackers?
Exactly. Was it Russian hackers? So we were up. There were a couple members of our team up till about 3 a.m, trying to figure it out. And if you're wondering, no, I was not one of those people. I shut it down about 12:30. But yeah, we spent a good number of hours. Opened a ticket with Microsoft. Continued to work through the issue, and you'll never guess what it was.
Well, I think you told me, so I'm going to pretend like I don't.
See, here's where it's like theater of the mind. There you go. Oh, that was a nice smooth transition. It was a document template. We had removed an entity, and that wasn't necessary, and there was a reference to it in a document template. And that corrupted the template, which then affected the metadata, which then corrupted mobile.
Wow. So it's like when you delete the entity, it doesn't have a dependency on that document template to delete the entity. But if you do that, then you try to download metadata, it will say there's an invalid reference here.
Right.
And that reminds me, now that you told me that, of times where I've seen, importing an organization where there was an SSRS report that referenced same kind of thing, that referenced in the query referenced another an entity that had been deleted, and importing the entity failed because of that. Mm-hmm. But I knew that was a big deal because you called me at 10 o'clock when I was just sitting down with Mrs. Lindstrom to watch a television show. And I like you and all, but I don't like you talk to you on the phone at 10 o'clock at night.
Well, it was kind of one of those funny things. We're sitting there in the lobby of the Residence Inn we were staying at, and this error happens. And this was one of the first times this has happened to me on a project. Hey, you're an MVP. What do we do?
Yes, like, your IQ just jumped up 50 points when you got your MVP.
Exactly. So I said, well, I do what I've done before I was an MVP. I'm calling Joel. So, all things mobile. Now, if it was BI, maybe I'd call Scott Sewell. I have people, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it was hairy. And what made it even worse is the next morning we were supposed to show it. So we got around that, but so we were able to still show what we needed to show to the client. So that was good. But yeah, it was hairy, and it was something. I mean, we were looking through the error logs. There were weird references. We thought maybe it was document storage, which that's a whole nother topic. It was interesting, but I'm glad we got it resolved, and it's interesting to find that little bug. So that's something we're going to submit to ideas as well. To have the
CRM tip of the day, right?
Absolutely, sir. Yes, sir. That'll be up there on tomorrow. I'll get that up tomorrow. And or actually, by the time you hear this, go on CRM tip of the day and search for mobile, and it'll be there.
Yeah, I was just listening to your adventures. Well, you didn't call me, right? Because then you wouldn't have stayed till 3 in the morning. Well, you didn't, but your guys.
Yeah.
Well, why didn't you call George? It was probably like noon his time or something.
Well, the last time I just texted George, it cost me more than a normal text. So, that probably stopped me there. But I'm just glad it's fixed. So, but it's interesting how that there's a dependency, but you never know about it unless you check for it.
Strictly, it's not a dependency because document template is the data. It's not
right,
but for some reason it's getting pulled as part of metadata. That's what the problem is.
Right.
It's a weird middle ground between content and metadata.
Exactly.
And for me personally, I think they need to move the document templates into be able to make those portable. Because every other template is portable except those. So I think that would help us as well. Because then we, can ensure that they're moving from environment to environment. But, that's just me.
So we got some clarification on our last episode about Microsoft Flow, and that was about the frequency in which they happen. And there's actually David Yak gave us a helpful chart that basically, depending on your plan, if you have the free version, it's every 15 minutes. If you have the version that comes with Dynamics 365, it's every 5 minutes. And then if you are paying for I guess it's the super flow, or what, I don't know what this higher price is. There's like a $15 per user per month that has a maximum flow frequency of 1 minute.
There's also a number of flows that is allowed to run.
Oh yes, that's right. And also the SLA. If you are using the free version, nothing's guaranteed. Whereas if you're using a paid version of Flow, you have 99.9%.
Okay, what's your view on SLA in general? Like 99.9. Let me just quickly calculate that. So we have about 730 hours a month times 60 minutes times 1%. Oh, sorry, 1/10 of the percent. It's about 45 minutes a month. The downtime.
Right.
Right. So,
and how do you with a service like Flow? How do you prove it? Is my question, because I've had flows that
yeah,
fail,
your flow
and
doesn't kick in and say, "Yep, sorry, there was a 5 seconds downtime."
Or you could be, the two services. You can even have two or more services in a flow. If any one of them isn't available or there's some problem at that time,
the one
your
thing
flow
I
will fail.
don't like about Microsoft SLAs, and I express it quite frequently, is that they put the SLAs are there, right? Let's say for Dynamics 365, and you can prove it that it was down, but they put the onus of proving things and actually raising any request about it on you. It's not like, let's say it went down for an hour, which will be in breach of SLA, right? It's not like they send an email and say, Joel, really sorry, it went down for an hour. Here's the refund. Let's make peace. Let's move on. Right? No, it's kind of, Joel, you have to go there and raise requests and say, yes, it was down, and here's my traces, and here's the proof, and they verify it, and then you have to submit to bill and request, and it just make it extremely difficult, and the refund is going to be a very insignificant one compared to time you need to spend to get that refund. So,
right.
So that's one thing. But I came across a couple of times about SLAs for services, and the companies, they said explicitly, look, we can put any number that you feel would make you comfortable, right? But it's not going to make any difference. What we're striving on is to get 100% SLA, 100% uptime. And here's our history for the past 2 years. And we are up like 99.99996% for the past 2 years. Here you go. Proof is in the pudding. So I like this kind of approach, saying this is our historical SLA uptime, and we aiming for 100%. That's it, right? So apart from scheduled downtime for maintenance and things like that, when we warn you in advance, this is our history, and you trust us. Because no money in the world, like we know with NA14 and Salesforce, no money in the world can make up for loss of business, right? So,
right. Now, when we did talk about Flow, listening to it, and we got some good feedback from the episode. The one use case for Dynamics that I didn't mention that I'm really seeing, and actually had a conversation with a client about this week, that I really see as a strong use case for it, is it's by far, from what I've seen, the easiest way to get text message activities and alerts with Dynamics. And that's something that an increasing number of clients that I talk to are wanting. And there are solutions out there. We've used Click Dimensions for that from a marketing standpoint. But if I just want to have a text activity, and I think we have tips today on how to develop something. But as far as if I want something where I could go, if you have a Twilio account or you sign up for one, you can go to any Dynamics environment and set up a text alert in minutes. Basically, either a alert notification, or if you want to create a custom activity called text, and then have it get the number from the person and send a text message to them. It's by far the easiest way I've seen to do that.
Yeah, that's for outbound text.
Yes.
Yeah,
not necessarily. Although there is inbound text with it too. I haven't played with that, but there is.
With what?
You can get messages from Twilio. One of the steps you can do is.
Oh no, Twilio does provide it. We have. Here's the plug. We have a two-way SMS solution ourselves. And we use Twilio as one of our providers, and you can get the messaging, but as you might appreciate, there is more to it because you have to match the number, and the numbers entered in CRM usually in a random fashion.
Right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. If you were doing inbound,
and where do you route it, and who's the owner? There's lots and lots and lots to it. So we did develop a two-way SMS solution. So it works. It works quite well for the two-way street. So now, I'm in the process of publishing it to the App Source, which is exciting. So I'm gonna get some tips from the App Source team that I hope to see at as soon as next week. because I'm flying out tonight.
If you want only outgoing, use Flow with Twilio. If you want two-way, get George's Alexa CRM solution.
Yes, please. And the outgoing, I actually was playing with Azure Functions, and it's in preview right now, but there is output. One of the outputs of the functions is actually Twilio message. So sending message, if you writing some code, you do something like new message object message, I don't remember, like message.text equal hi Joel, message.number equal whatever Joel's number is, and then return message, and you're done. It's like one-liner. I can squeeze it in one line. So you get triggered by something from CRM, for example, or from operations, or from anywhere else. So it's really easy in Azure Functions as well. Azure Functions, they scale a bit better than Flow. So the bottom line is that there's so many options now. My only concern with the Flow is that how you control it. If you're DevOps, how you control people going out there and developing thousands of little puny flows and then bugging you when those flows don't work.
So what are the permissions on the CRM side that you have to have in order to be able to connect to that? Do you have to have a sysadmin, or is it just as long as you can
as the user?
It limits you to whatever records you would have access to when you logged in. It uses your user account.
I guess that makes sense. So whatever you could do is essentially just doing it on your behalf, so like a bot. So
correct.
As long as you
there aren't any easy ways to do bulk record updates. So I don't see it opening doors that way. It's more events and dynamics, or creating individual records based on external factors. But you're right. There could be anything like that. But I mean, in reality, CRM workflow, if you read the user guide, it's designed to be where users create their own workflows. Nobody ever did because it was so
right.
complicated.
Right.
But you can lock it down. But you're right. I guess you would control it by by limiting who you give access to Flow and who you don't.
Oh, speaking of flows, have you read the latest tip of the day?
How to convert workflows into actions?
Yeah, he called me and said, hey, look, I've got this workflow which got like 22 steps and creating like 4 different records and sending some emails, doing something else. And we need to parameterize it, like give it some input and do something depending on what the parameters are. So I want an action with the same steps. And I said, well, man, you have to recreate. And he said, no way. So he went out and he came back and said, yep, done it. It's a hack. Obviously, you have to use it like swing between the flags.
I love how the instructions say if everything has gone according to plan.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's a risky business, obviously. Test it and try it and test it, but it should be like under the hood. It's still the same stuff. It's just extra parameters.
So the guy that just the guy who just brought up the concern. What are you going to do if your users screw up your system with Flow, or that they have these flows that don't work? And it's now recommending a hack to change a workflow to an action. I like it.
Except that with the workflows, you do have some control what's allowed, what's not. And I think, if memory serves me right, I think actions have separate permissions from the workflow.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so
you can limit actions. You can limit who has who has access to which actions.
No, I seriously see Flow and Power Apps. It's like new generation Microsoft Access. So we will end up with it's a powerful tool, it's useful, but we will end up with the bazillions of tiny, poorly designed, yet working applications that people love and nurture as their own children. But then those applications will break, and that will create nightmare for people who maintain the environment. Oh, my Flow didn't trigger what did you do? I have a flow which gets created every time contact is created. We just did the bulk import of 10,000 contacts, right? So that blew your monthly allowance of 750 flows, obviously.
Well, you could look at it as it creates problems or it creates business opportunities for Microsoft partners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of tips of the day, yesterday's tip at the time we're recording this was one that I asked a question, and a lot of the tips of the day I write are from questions I ask when I don't know something. And this was coming from a lot of clients are confused because if you go in Dynamics 365 and look at the available solutions, you see both fantasy sales team and gamification. And so the question you get asked all the time that I got an official answer for is, what is the difference if I do? Are they the same thing? Does gamification include everything fantasy sales team does? And the answer is yes, it does. And you want to use gamification if you're on Dynamics 365 because actually Fantasy Sales Team was essentially a preview version. It was an existing product, but it was kind of a preview of the gamification. But it had a separate login scheme. It didn't use Office 365, and the new version, for one thing, it looks a lot better. I think Fantasy Sales Team was a little cartoonish, and the new version looks a lot better. But it supports a lot more players. You could have with Fantasy Sales Team, you could have 250 and 15 games to 500 players in each gamification now.
Do you actually have clients who use gamification?
Yes, not a lot, and I'm encouraging my team to at least show it to our clients when we roll it out because it's included in there. And the ones we have using it have seen some positive results because the traditional user adoption dashboard approach was top down. It was management cracking the whip and saying you will use this system, and if you weren't using it, you got a stern talking to. Where this is putting it more, democratizing it, and making it where people want to use it because especially salespeople want to compete with their colleagues. That two things salespeople want, and I was a salesperson. They want, number one, get a big fat commission check, and number two, do better than the other salespeople. And so
I'd be happy with number one.
I like I like also that they changed the name because I think gamification is as useful or more useful for non-sales scenarios. I think call centers is a great example where you have people driven by certain actions like completing a certain number of calls or that type of goals. Mm-hmm. And if you can have them using it and having something called sales team for people who are outside of sales, I think turned people off or made people not even want to look at it. So so I would say look at, especially with the enhancements, some really solid. And anytime anybody bemoans that the goals entity in Dynamics is old and dusty and hasn't been touched, I always say, have you seen Fantasy Sales Team? Because goals was powerful, but the UI was very complicated, the way they handled different metrics. Mm-hmm. I like the way that the KPIs in gamification are handled. And one of the things they've added is the ability for non-admins, like sales managers, to create new KPIs, which the other thing I find is sales managers especially want to be empowered to change the goals on a regular basis. And by doing that and not having to have an admin do it, I think it's ready for prime time now.
Do you notice the pattern with the solutions? That Microsoft goes out, buys something, puts it up for preview, then basically 6 months later they're saying, nah, we can do better. And they do their own. It happened to Parature, it happened to marketing, it happened to FST, it happened to project. It didn't happen to field services. That's probably the only one it didn't happen to.
Well, it still kind of happened to field service.
Yeah,
in a few ways.
Rooted it up and turned it upside down and rewrote it.
Well, no, I mean the core of Field One's there, but they integrated it much better
No,
the core product.
I'm talking about not even core. Like they taking the product, they purchase it,
I
they
see
buy
what
it
you're
off the
saying. I'm
vendor,
sorry. Okay.
then they dig inside and say, "I can't believe this pile of goo. We certainly can do better." And
Well,
they re-implement
or
it.
another way to look at it is with like Fantasy Sales Team. That was a solution that worked with other CRM systems.
Right.
So by purchasing it, they can stop Salesforce users from using it and have a checkbox in the Microsoft category. Then build it the way they want to and make it more consistent.
Wow.
Make it.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Now that I'm thinking about it, the only real big change from between Field 1 and field service is the difference in mobile client and the automatic routing engine. They rebuilt that, but they needed to, and then the portal. So they built pieces, but the core field service engine stayed the same. So interesting.
Right. So I guess takeaway from the gamification is if you use Fantasy Sales Team, you'll want to install a new version. There really isn't any data migration between them, so you'll have to set up the games. And if you haven't looked at it, and you have, especially if you have Dynamics 365 Online, I would recommend you look at it because I think it's much more intuitive now, looks a lot better, and your salespeople, your customer service people, you're probably already doing something to motivate them with like a gift card or a trip or something. This gives you a way to bring that into Dynamics. And bring in what especially if you're already doing that stuff. I think it just makes sense.
So I can set up a game where the first prize is a Cadillac, second prize is a set of steak knives.
Third prize, you get fired.
That's right. I'm glad you got the reference. Thank you very much.
Glengarry XRM.
That's right.
This episode of CRM Audio is sponsored by Alexa CRM. WordPress powers more than 25% of all the websites on the internet and is the number one choice for blogs, websites, and portals because it's open source, simple to use, reliable, and extendable. Dynamics CRM has become a de facto standard in sales, marketing, customer service, and industry solutions. Now they can work together thanks to the Dynamics CRM WordPress plugin built with love by the Alexa CRM team. Capture forms, engage your users and customers, all without writing any code. Control your site in WordPress, keeping your data in CRM. To build the plugin, Alexa CRM has created an open source Dynamics CRM PHP toolkit, unlocking the world of Dynamics for PHP developers. Download your 30-day trial from alexacrm.com/plugin. and instantly create a portal by connecting your CRM and WordPress site. We thank Alexa CRM for their sponsorship of CRM Audio. So the tool that I got is the LIZone QC Series 35,000 milliamp hour portable battery. And I have a number of these, and I got this one because it's the only one that will charge a Microsoft Surface or Surface Book, and it will do it. You can charge your Surface or Surface Book something like 2.5 times with it. It's fairly beefy. It probably weighs more than the Surface does. It's still still fairly thin, but if you're like me and you've been on the 6-hour flight and your Surface lasts 2 hours into the flight, it's going to be great for that.
Wouldn't it be cheaper to buy business seats where there are chargers on the flight?
Well, you can't always bank that that's going to be there, so
that's true.
I guess so.
6-hour flight, and so that means the usable flight is like what, 5 hours, just under 5, right?
Yeah.
My Surface does last about 4 something hours.
You can't always be sure when you get to the airport and you're waiting at the gate. You can't always be sure you'll be able to get the plug. There's always those people sitting right by the plug and you can't get to it. So that's why if I can charge it before the flight, I can usually get a solid 4 hours. I never get more than 4 hours out of it. But have this now, so that won't be a problem anymore. How about
the last time I read about those chargers, like the big mama chargers that can do your laptops and Surfaces, they tend to be very unreliable. Like the failure rate is high, probably it's just an age of technology. Probably, like there's a high failure rate. But
I mean, that's not a small. I mean, I have a Surface as well. I mean, that's not a small deal if you could have something that can charge your
depends
Surface.
how big is it. I mean, I can always wheel out diesel generator.
Well, okay. So here, I'll give you a comparable. One time I tried charging my iPad from not my iPad, from my Surface. I tried charging my iPad through my laptop and failed miserably. But so you could see, for me, if I could have something smaller than a laptop that can charge a Surface that I can put in my bag, I would totally buy that.
Well, here's the link, and so it has a solid 4 rating on Amazon.
Very nice.
I think that's that's the one I was looking at.
I'll let you know if it fails on me.
Yep.
All right. So you guys have any tools or any?
Well, I will reserve. Look, I do have a thing that I bought for the conference next week, but I'll talk about it during the conference because it is for the conference. It's coming into Portugal directly. It's a piece of hardware. I don't know if it's going to work and how good is it, but we're going to talk about it during the conference. Are you guys coming to Lisbon?
I am not.
I'm not either.
I would love to go to Portugal, but
and I'm coming all the way
just
to find you not there. That's
there
disappointing.
I'm going to Ohio.
That's a fair trade. That's a very fair trade.
Yeah.
There's some very scenic parts of Ohio.
What kind of food do they have in Ohio?
Lots of fast food.
Yes.
Okay, so it's
lots of fried food.
Fried chicken versus Portuguese chicken and Portuguese tarts.
Yeah, you win.
Do you guys call them Portuguese tarts as well? The small kind of custard-filled pastry things?
I call them small custard-filled pastry things.
Oh, I was gonna say I call them donuts.
No, without the hole in the middle.
Well, yeah, these don't have hole because you got a filling.
Oh, yeah.
Nice Boston cream donut. It's nice.
No, we in Australia they call Portuguese tarts, but there is a native name for it, and we were told they're awesome in Lisbon. So
in Portugal they just call them tarts.
That's right. They call them Russian tarts.
There you go.
It's always it's always the case, right? So there is a salad that we call French salad in Russian, but in France they call it Russian salad. It's something like this. It's it's always reciprocal.
Exactly. I do have I don't have a piece of hardware. I do have a tool, and I'm sure a lot of people have used it before. But I used it this week, and it was incredibly helpful.
Lightsaber.
No, I do have a lightsaber. I won't lie. I have a replica, but no. What I'm talking about. You couldn't
afford the real one.
Well, no. With a real actual blade that cuts, that would be awesome. But no, it doesn't exist. Physics does not allow me to have that. So, but the tool I'm talking about is one of the plugins in the XRM Toolbox, the Attribute Usage Inspector. Very helpful tool. If you haven't used that piece of the XRM Toolbox, very, very valuable. We had a situation where we need to clean up some schema, and we have a lot of attributes on the form and off the form. So we need to understand whether or not we can remove that schema if it's been used in migration, if there's a lot of records with data in there. It's a great way to go entity by entity and take a look to see what percentage of the records have data in those attributes. Very easy it's color indicated. So if it's, greater than, I think it's 75%, it's green. Less than 25%, it's red. So very, very handy, helpful, easy to view. It does have some limits on record count. More if it is greater than 50,000 records, it kind of bonks out on you, but it says there's an alternate method, but online I wouldn't really go down that route because it's going to try to download every single record in your system, so that could cause some really significant performance issues. So I wouldn't necessarily do that, or over 50,000 records. But for especially for reference entities, for smaller objects where it's not one of the core entities, this is a great tool to help you get some information very quickly.
Cool. Don't you wish, like, with XRM Toolbox, it's grew in popularity like tremendously, and there's great tools. What I find now a bit frustrating, and obviously it's no fault of Tanguy or anyone else, but you go in, you connect to your instance, and then you run a tool, which it would be attribute mapper, entity schmapper, and fluctuator for the solutions, and what's
the flux capacitor.
Yep,
that's right, flux capacitor, and what's not. Wouldn't it be nice to go other way around? So I go into solution, I go into my entity, I kind of right mouse click, and here comes the list of tools that I can run against the entity.
Right.
I think they
that'd be cool.
Into it with extensibility. There were some challenges with that. But that would be cool. I mean, it would be even cooler if Microsoft opened up, the UI in Solution Designer, like they do in Visual Studio, and allowed extensibility there. That would be awesome.
Well, theoretically, couldn't you create icons in App Designer for objects that are URL specific, and then point those to if you were doing this as an admin, let's say, okay, and it was in an admin section, you could point those to local URLs, shortcuts for those tools, because you can put those, you can put the tools on the toolbox. You can make shortcuts to your desktop where it'll launch directly to that tool. So,
but that's what the problem is. The problem is, like, it's fundamentally architectural issue, that every time you launch a tool, it's a separate one, so it doesn't piggyback on anything else.
No,
it
right,
does its
right.
own thing with metadata, I believe.
Sure.
I'm not sure if metadata is shared between the tools, but that's each tool lives in isolation. It's a good thing because it's isolation,
right.
And it's a bad thing because it's isolation. So it's a bit of both.
So I think you could get part of the way there, but it would be as an admin on your PC, right? You couldn't get to where you're wanting to go. But I think that'd be fantastic if we had a way to link those tools contextually.
I'm talking about the context of execution more than anything else, and obviously sharing the data. Though some tools do that. I'll be honest, I haven't looked into how to create extensions for XRM Toolbox, but I believe someone done that. One of the MVPs.
There's a sample tool.
View Designer. The View Designer can exchange data with the Fetch XML designer. You go into View, you go into Fetch XML, and then you come back, you modify your Fetch XML, and then you come back and here's your view. So I find that for complicated views, I find myself spending more time in XRM Toolbox than in the actual, View designer in Dynamics 365.
Mm-hmm. It seems like the tool that we need is a tool to help you find the other tools, because there's just so many of them now. And every time I log in there, I used to know the XRM Toolbox, and now I go in there. There's just so much stuff, and it's opened up to so many different people developing stuff. It's like there's just so much in there. I don't know what
we need. App Source for XRM Toolbox.
Yeah, it's become its own ecosystem, which is kind of cool to see. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm going to the point where I just go to the search and I just start typing stuff, and most times, 9 times out of 10, several different little plugins pop up, and so
we need XRM Toolbox tip of the day.
Yes, we do. Let me
that
ask
will
you.
last us about 70 tips. I believe that's the count of plugins now.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys a question. How many apps have you created? Just straight out apps from Dynamics 365. Whether you're doing an implementation or just messing around in your own environment, how many apps have you created?
Well, every environment has at least one app.
Yeah, but I'm saying custom. I'm saying separated. Yeah, I'm not talking about the default. I'm talking about how many apps have you created outside of that? Like, say for example, you wanted a sales.
Trials or what? Yeah,
I don't know, matter. Sean. How many apps have you created?
Well, 2. But my point is this: I found a different experience with a default than with a custom app. So I created, my team and I shouldn't say I just did it by myself, but our team created 2.
It's okay.
Two
you
apps.
can take the credit. They won't listen anyway.
I'm trying to be a good man. I'm trying to turn over a new leaf. But anyways, we created a sales and a service app, right? Because we want to refine the experience, right? Instead of having the whole thing blown out. And that worked great. We could create sitemaps for, we go in the app designer and it's an enormous amount of extensibility you can do there. Even down to limiting views. Makes it very easy and clean. However, the only way that I have found you can update the base app is through the sitemap control, right? So going into a solution, loading the sitemap, and then going into the app designer through the sitemap. You can't do all of the granularity that you can with a custom app. I didn't know if you guys ran into that.
I'm not sure I'm following you.
So when you create a custom app, there's multiple levels. You have at the very top the sitemap, and then you have the entities, the forms, the views, the workflows, all of that. You have all the layers, right, in a custom app. In the default app, all you can do is edit the sitemap.
Right. Well, I mean, to me that makes sense because if you could edit all the other stuff, don't you have to have some place where you see the whole thing?
Yes, you do. But what I'm getting at is the experience is so dramatically different in making those changes. Yes, you should have a standard sitemap. Well, what I'm trying to get at is in the standard default app. I think if you had more flexibility in a role-based form to limit some of those things like the views, like different forms, that sort of thing, in the default app, so you didn't have to create a whole new app. I mean, because there's going to be customers that don't want separate apps. They just want to use the standard app, right? But you don't have the flexibility you do with a custom app. It's not like it took us a long amount of time to create the custom app. It actually didn't. But I found that...
I think you've got two different use cases. I think you've got to still satisfy the number of Dynamics users who just want to do CRM. You got a company, you want CRM, you're on CRM 2016, you want to keep just using CRM, which means I have everything.
Right.
And I've maybe got my roles set up so that I don't see certain forms. Then you've got the focused experience for specific work scenarios. Mm-hmm. And so I think you've got to address both of them. So it makes sense that, but I see what you mean. If the default app is really an app, you should still have all the other customization. Right. But I still see that be an issue that if you could have the granularity in the default app, you could potentially turn off things that you need to be in the default app.
Right. No, agreed. It's just, or at least have a way to easily clone it. I don't know. It's just, I just found that as kind of a weird kind of thing that if you really want to leverage all the power of the app designer and the capabilities, you have to create a whole new app.
And that takes you, what, 12 minutes?
It doesn't take you long at all, but just the fact that you have to do that, it's just kind of, I don't know.
There's 12 minutes Sean's never going to get back.
Never. It's actually cool, and the experience is great. And then being able to disable users being able to see the default app is pretty cool too.
So what did you find if you disable the default app for a user and they use CRM for Outlook or CRM for mobile?
CRM for mobile worked fine.
Did it limit them to what they have in their app?
Well, shortly after we did it, we had our mobile issues that we talked about earlier in the pod. So I'll tell you that next pod. But it seemed to demonstrate the things that were in the default sitemap. So
it seems like the mobile app needs an app switcher.
Yes.
For people who do different things. If you really do have, your different role-based apps, and you have people with multiple apps, you need to have a way of switching between them from the mobile app as well as Outlook.
Yeah. I would really like to see. I would like to see, and if I'm missing this, tell me, because that would be great. I would really like to see that app designer have a mobile use where you can just design the mobile experience in that app designer, so it's unique, right? If you want to have things in the web but not in mobile, and I'm not just talking about enabling the entity, because you could have some roles that want to be able to see that entity in mobile and some that don't. Have a way to design the mobile experience in the app designer, I think would be fantastic.
Right. All right. Well, yes. Report back and see because I would love to know and I could try this out, but you and your team can do it for me. I'm delegating.
I will do it. Yes, sir.
See what happens if you are only limited to one app and you do mobile. So because there's other things that I found is when I was playing with it is if you have an app that only includes 3 entities but you hit advanced find, you see all the other entities still.
Right. Exactly. And the only way you don't see them in advanced find is by turning off the access to the entity in the security role. So. Right.
Okay. So a little housekeeping. Last month was our biggest month ever as far as number of listens, and I just wanted to thank everybody who has listened, and we get a lot of feedback from people who, I think one niche we fill is, and for those of us who work for CRM partners and around other people, we kind of take for granted people, having other people to talk CRM with.
Yeah.
But when we're at CRMUG or we get comments on Facebook with people who say, I don't work with a lot of other people with CRM, they feel like we're those people. They feel like we're kind of their CRM support group, if you will.
Yeah.
And we got a nice tweet from Todd Mercer in Ottawa, Canada, who said CRM audio is a great way to kickstart your morning. So Todd, if you're listening to this and kickstarting your morning, thank you, Todd, for listening.
Good morning, sir. Enjoy your beverage of choice.
A nice steaming cup of maple syrup.
That's right.
I meant to get back to. We have a very nice message from some time ago from Belgium.
Really?
From, Wim. Yeah. So if Wim is listening, hi and thank you very much for the message of support. Yeah. So he said that sometimes we make his day. So.
And we had a comment. We had a comment from Captain Red Laces who said that when George said in the last episode, and I quote, "Power BI is boring," that he was just trying to bait Captain Red Laces to get involved.
Our what do we call them? Our nephew podcasts? Our cousin podcasts? What do we call them?
We'll call Scott our sister.
Our sister podcasts. If you're out there and you haven't listened to either of the sister podcasts, the sister wives, I encourage you to do so. There's some really good content.
If you didn't listen to the last Power BI podcast, it was Scott did a good job of laying out the data export service, which coincidentally one of our clients asked about that like the 5 minutes after I published it, and I sent him a link to the episode. It was like perfect timing. But George, what's your thought on? We've got the export service that will export your CRM data to we'll sync it with an Azure database. Where does that fit in with the common data service? It seems like we got two things here, and do you see them as related? Because somebody said, yeah, you could populate the common data service with the data export, but it seems like there's these two different things that just really aren't clear on how they fit together.
I think Microsoft is trying a few things, see what sticks. Look, the export to SQL is very raw, so you get exactly like virtually accessible copy of your data, right? You can trim it, shape it a bit, but this is what it is in the essence. So you can then write your Power BI or something else just directly as if you would against the schema. So effectively it's like a bridge. And remember old days when you write a report and say you got fed up with filter views because of performance sucks, or you blow the query limit, and you just say stuff it. You grant permissions for specific account and just go and write against the tables. Something like that. So this is your opportunity to do it in a nice and controlled way. So it's obviously reporting. I haven't looked in details. If you recall, my primary beef with Power BI and other reports like that, and with the data export services as well, that you lose identity, you lose security, context of the reports. So I'd be interested. I'd be very curious to see what's going to be developed there. Having said that, common data services, that's something entirely different because you're shaping the data into from one model to another. So you're mapping, and if I suppose you can create. Can you actually create in common data services the proper custom entities?
From what I understood, you could create whatever.
No, sorry, of course you can. I meant to have the same power, like you can relate and things like that. So, can you? Does it allow you enough to create one-to-one mapping? If you create an entity, a custom entity in CRM, and you enable it for feedback, and then you say, I want activities and this and this and that, then will you be able to create an equivalent on CDS side that would give you a good mapping from one to another? So, it's a data model, so inevitably it will be slower. Data export, why it's good, it's freakishly fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Yeah, so it can chew your gigabytes very, very quickly, and it operates on deltas and changes. So it's really fast by all standards. So,
and the other thing that we talked about on the episode was, not to rehash the whole episode, but it gets some of those entities that aren't exposed to advanced find, like the POA table, and as a result, you really could mimic CRM security in it.
Well, and also, if you want to know more about what Scott thought about Power BI and security
as a challenge to mimic CRM security using POA.
Oh, I didn't say it was easy. I'm saying you could.
Right.
I'm just looking to
your limited amount of.
If Daryl has some couple hours to spare, I think that would be a good challenge for him.
Well, I would say listen to Captain Red Lace's podcast number 6. He covers security. For 21 minutes of listening pleasure.
That didn't sound right. What you just said.
It is 21 minutes of listening pleasure. Listening about Power BI and
just
security.
So wrong.
And don't forget Matthew Anderson's podcast, the Personal Productivity Podcast, as well.
That's right. I listened to
your email.
That's right. I listened to that the other day as I stared at my inbox with some unread email. So, yes, very good podcast.
This has been CRM Audio, the Microsoft Dynamics CRM podcast. You can hear previous episodes on our website, crm.audio. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, follow us on Twitter at CRM Audio, or leave us a comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/CRM podcast. If you have any topic suggestions or questions that you would like for us to answer on a future episode, please drop us an email at voice@crm.audio. Special thanks to Dale Simmons for our theme music. Go check out his website, dalesimmons.com. Please join us next time on CRM Audio.